There's an interesting question from Glenn Ortiz. Charles, the CFTC and federal prosecutors charged the BitMEX exchange. I thought it was actually the state of New York, but anyway, DOJ, whatever, charged BitMEX exchange with facilitating illicit crypto derivative trading. What does this mean for the space? If you run an exchange, an actual meat space exchange, and you are human beings in that exchange, you cannot go to Seychelles or another jurisdiction, service U.S. customers, and expect not to be captured under U.S. regulation. Charlie Shrem learned this. Many people have learned this, that your compliance scheme is incredibly important, and your ability to work with regulators when you are a regulated business is incredibly important. Okay, so they were charged with BSA violations, probably hundreds of them, and they'll keep digging. They'll find 20, 30 other conspiracy to commit and other things on that list, in addition to all of the fines that they're going to get for the CFTC for running an unregulated derivatives exchange. The government has always taken these things very seriously. And I remember even before cryptocurrencies existed, people got shut down for running MSBs or other facilities. And here's the thing, guys. We say, oh, the regulation's terrible. It's like, how many exchange hacks have we had? How many problems have we had with exchanges? They say, trust us, and then you run away with the money, or the CEO dies. And then, in a place in India known for people faking their death, and dozens of these other problems. And how many Mt. Goxes do we have? And then when you look under the hood, you find lack of process and controls and incompetence and wash trading and all these other problems that occur. So if our industry was so incredibly good at self-regulation, then why didn't we do it? For 10 years, we just didn't do it. It's the same story: corruption, greed, waste, fraud, abuse, incompetence. And so regulators now are stepping in, and they look at these things and they say these markets manipulate retail investors and manipulate the industry as a whole. And there's no control systems for them. So we need to do something about it. Now, we could try to do DeFi, and that's happening. And the code then has baked into it consumer protections and regulations and these other things. And there's a lot of people talking about that. And I think there's some merit for using DIDs and authenticated addresses and other things with DeFi. And it solves the custodial problem and the front running problem. And it's no longer we trust them or we trust the regulator. It's we trust the system can't fail, and we have mathematical certainty behind it. And that's great. But it's going to take 5, 10, 15, 20 years for that to mature and materialize, and a lot of difficult regulatory questions. But if you start a business, an exchange, and you take other people's money and you hold on to that money and you make markets, and people believe that you're following some form of code of ethics, you should have a realistic expectation of being regulated. You really should. And the people who don't, what they do is they offshore and they go into jurisdictions that give them no control, and total control. The jurisdictions take no control of the process, and then they get tempted, and it gets too easy. And there's always some moral compromise you make along the way, because the numbers go from thousands to hundreds of thousands to millions to billions, and at some point it becomes too easy to do something. And the minute that you take that one step in that direction, the whole system comes collapsing down, and everybody gets screwed. So I'm not surprised these things happen. If you service U.S. customers as a regulated financial institution, you're expected to be regulated by them. Now, is the U.S. government over litigious? Sure. Do they use financial regulation as a geopolitical tool? Read Montserrat's Treasury Wars. It's a great example of where they took financial regulation, used it in the war on terrorism. And that's inappropriate and improper for many of the day-to-day operations, the consumer protection components. In fact, in some cases, contradictory to the consumer protection components. SARs are very invasive. So that's certainly a conversation. But if you choose to do this business, like if you choose to be a doctor, there are standards. And you can't say, well, I disagree with the standards, but I'm still going to go and be a physician. If you run an exchange, there are standards if you service U.S. customers. So it is definitely not surprising at all that this has occurred. And there are plenty of counterexamples where people have done the thing the right way, like Kraken, for example. And I have a great degree of admiration and respect for their process and procedures. And there was no reason for them in this day and age in 2020, not given their success, to attempt to pursue some sort of remediation. They chose not to, and they chose to go on the offshore route. And the predictable result is now they're arrested, and they're going to have to deal with that. It is what it is. This is the world we live in.